Welcome to the very first edition of Saving People, Testing Things. Today I'm talking about the Supernatural comics, and specifically I'm going to go into editions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right off the gate, I have no idea what these comics are about, and I'm reading them with a completely fresh perspective. I have no idea what the storylines are about, how close they are to the show, and all of these things. So I had some thoughts, and let's chat about it a little bit. I think I'll also read some of the comics that are coming out later. There's a Valentine's special edition, which I already have, but I also want to read 5, 6, and 7, which have already been scheduled for production and publication. So definitely come back to check the reviews out on those things. Let's start with number 1. As I said, I read all 4 of them, and right off the bat, I think one of the things that I noticed was, I don't know if it's the writing or it's the art. I think it's a little bit of the art more than the writing. Dean is mean. I don't know how else to put it. Like, Dean comes across a lot more snarky. Dean is a lot more, the charm is sort of lost. I guess you need Jensen Ackles to be there in order to portray that charm. But all of that stuff feels a little lost. I don't know how they went with the art, because obviously, like, the comics have photo covers with, Jared and Jensen on it, so I don't know if the art was supposed to be like not photorealistic, like you couldn't like make them look like Jensen and Jared. I don't know how that played out in terms of copyright issues and things like that, but I do feel like the way Sam and Dean are written, both of them are a lot more snarkier, but especially Dean. Like, the way Dean has been written, the way he has been drawn and brought to life, like, it's not the Dean that we're used to. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing about this, which is, like, I think Dean is supposed to be the charming one and Sam is supposed to be the nerdy one, similar to our J2 in real life, but what ends up happening is they both come off a little bit intense, and Dean actually comes out a little bit creepy and intense. So I think in terms of that, like, it just kind of put me off a little bit and took me by surprise. So, talking about the plot a little bit, the first comic is set immediately after the pilot, and there is continuity in the comics. We see them do things similar to the way they did it in season 1. So you have the Monster of the Week format, which is really nice. I know many of you enjoyed the Monster of the Week format, so I think the comics are a great way, because they're like the bite-sized versions of the Monster of the Week format. So if you're looking to get into comics, if you're looking to get into this type of a format, then I recommend the Supernatural comics, because they do the Monster of the Week stuff pretty well. Back to the plot, they do use, similar to the show, they use John's journal to get their information, to figure out who the monster is and how to tackle it. It's also set, as I said, it's set immediately after the pilot, so they're still kind of talking about Jess, and it's more like season 1 vibes in terms of looking for the ghost or the demon that killed both their mom and Jess. So all of that stuff is happening in the background, and they're figuring those things out. It's just the specific steps that they're taking are now different. So the hook of this particular edition, the first one, is that there is a man in Wisconsin who works for a liquor company and has spontaneously combusted. And so Sam and Dean end up there. And I'm not going to spoil the plot for you, so there's no like spoiler alert here. This is just kind of the setup of it. But what I found was interesting was, I think in season 1 of the show, it's a similar format, right? And so it's very easy to draw those parallels and say, like, okay, what's happening differently, what's happening similarly. And in terms of what's happening differently, it's that the victims here, or the people involved in these incidents, they're a lot more complex. There's a lot more like layers to these characters, which I think is really interesting. For instance, one of the victims in the first comic is this person named Effie, and eventually, as you go through the comic, you realize that Effie is not just this one-dimensional victim, as we're used to seeing in the Villain of the Week format or the Monster of the Week format. So I think that's really cool. So that for me was like a very interesting aspect of the comics, that another dimension that's added to the whole Supernatural format. Special mention, they have a title card, which I thought was so cool. So yeah, they only do it for the first two comics, but I think it's still so cool. So, you know, Dynamite, bring back the title cards. They're really nice. Okay, let's talk about comic number 2. Comic number 2, the hook is that they are out of money, and Dean decides to take them to Vegas to earn some money, and they run into this ghost who is lucky, but you know, she was murdered in the 60s and is now looking to sort of find some peace and to get Sam and Dean's help to do that. I think it's the setup is very interesting, but it's a good format to kind of explore Sam and Dean as characters, but that doesn't translate because, again, Dean is just smug and snarky and creepy, and he consistently taunts Sam for being the college boy, which is like a lot more than I recall from season 1. I don't know, maybe season 1 Sam and Dean are also just the same, but I just don't remember them being that much, like being as polar opposites as the Sam and Dean in the comics are. And I don't know, the bond between them, like, you're watching Supernatural for the brothers, and I feel like that element hasn't translated well, not until the second comic, at least. Comic number 3, the first one without a title card. As I pointed out before, only the first 2 have title cards. Dynamite, bring back the title cards. I really love them. The hook here is really interesting. It's related to Frankenstein and, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And it's about art imitating life when a book club leader starts using these science fiction and fantasy books as handbooks to do necromancy, essentially. So it's really cool. One thing that I'd like to point out is at some point in the cold opens, one of the characters describes Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as purple prose. And I don't know, it just that sentence just stuck with me. And so it's not purple prose. Go read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And there's also this really cute detail, which is, I think, the one of the production packaging artists, editors, is Nate Cosby. And Nate Cosby points out certain elements of the storyline that happened in the previous editions, and it's like notating Nate, and it's so cute. I love it. So if you miss something and if something doesn't make sense to you, you know which comic to find it in, and it's adorable. I don't know if this is like a typical practice in comics. I'm not a voracious comic book reader, so I couldn't tell you, but maybe someone can tell me in the comments if this is just standard practice, but I found it very adorable. This is also one of the first comics in the series that has some real continuity. They talk about events that happened in the second one. So that's really interesting, and it seems like it's picking up more of a coherent storyline. So we'll see how it goes. It kind of also starts mirroring the real Supernatural, because you have sentences like, this is either really bad storytelling or something's up, which I thought was like meta, fourth wall breaky kind of a thing that you would see in Supernatural. And you start getting a little bit more of the like OG Sam and Dean, and their personality starts sort of coming through, because you have Sam who hasn't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but Dean has, because Dean knows that Frankenstein is the doctor and not the monster. And I loved that detail. It felt really like going back to the original Sam and Dean, which is something that for me didn't come through in the first 2 comics. I will point out though, because I said this for the first 2 comics, that it's really nice if you like the Monster of the Week format. It's really cool if that's something that you're interested in. But with the 3rd comic, even though it's an interesting setup and the hook is really interesting, there isn't a whole lot of lore. So if that's your thing, you might find the 3rd one a little bit lacking. But again, keep in mind that these are very bite-sized, so kind of reading them sequentially or kind of reading them all together and like gathering them and reading them together makes a lot more sense than reading them from like month to month. I mean, they take forever to come out, so that's probably not the best idea. But you can collect all of them and like maybe read them at the end of the year. Comic 4, let's go. Okay, so the hook for this comic is that Sam and Dean's car is possessed. It's not Baby. They don't have Baby for some reason. They've explained it, but I'm not going to go into it. Go read the comics if you want to know why. But they don't have Baby. They're not using Baby at the moment, but the car that they are using is possessed, and it takes them to a supernatural library where there's a whole bunch of people who are dead but haven't moved on because they just want to continue reading books, which I think is such a lovely concept, because I feel like this is very much grounded in reality, where people who are like dying in libraries being like, just one more book. Oh yeah, and at some point Sam says, I never read to escape. I only read to like learn things. And I was like, that is so, you're throwing so much shade right now at people who love reading and who use reading as a form of escapism. Overall, I think the 4th comic was my favorite. I am not going to go too much into the details because there's a lot of like plot action happening here. But the reason I really like it is, and I really do think it's the art that's not jiving well with me in the first few editions. Because in the 4th one, I loved the art, especially the last page, which I'm going to show you right now. This is Sam on the last page of the fourth comic, and I love everything about this. He's going into the special section of the library to find out more about things and to find out about, like, this is so perfect. This is like peak Sam for me. So I really love this. And another point that I wanted to make about the overall sort of art and also like writing and depiction, like, one of the things that season 1 of Supernatural, which I think this is the closest to falls short of, is the whole depiction of the supernatural, right? Because they're limited, or they were limited by the computer graphics, by the CG technologies of like 2005. But with the comic, when you do this in like a book version, a graphic novel version, or something like that, you can very conveniently bridge the line between how much to show and how much to leave up to the reader's imagination or the viewer's imagination. So I think it does that really, really well, because it does show you some things, and the art is really phenomenal when it does show you the supernatural things. But when it leaves certain things up to the imagination, that's also done like kind of perfectly. It picks the right moments to do that. So those are sort of my highlights when it comes to this comic. Final thoughts. I'm going to continue reading this series. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, despite the fact that it's very obvious to make these comparisons to the show, I tried keeping an open mind and looking at it as its own entity. And I'm really excited for the next issues. The special issue has a different writer and artist, I think, the Valentine's issue. So I'm kind of excited to see what it's about. And I'm going to come back here and do a more detailed review, because it's just the one comic. But I'll keep you updated on the other editions that I read and how I find them. I definitely recommend reading them, though. Like, they are really cool, and you get them in different covers. So you can pick a cover that you like, an art style that you like. You can also pick a photo cover. There's some with both Jared and Jensen, and I think those are really interesting as well. So go give them a try. Come back and tell me what you think about them. Or if you've already read them, because I think these came out a while ago, come back here and tell me what you thought of them. You can find the first 4 on stands. I'm not sure where you can find this special edition, but I know that Dynamite has like a whole thing on their website where you can like buy the comics from them directly. So if you're interested, that's where you can find the comics, and give them a try. It doesn't take up too much. Like, it takes 15 minutes to read a comic. So yeah, it's mostly just pictures. It's really good art. So go ahead and read the comics and tell me what you think about it. Thanks for liking, sharing, and clicking that bell, and I will see you next time.